Tick, tick, tick. That sound isn't just a clock, it's a warning dressed in rhythm. 60 seconds. Funny how that number suddenly feels heavy, doesn't it? You spend your whole life pretending you've got time. Later, tomorrow, next week. But now there's no more later. Now the door isn't knocking politely, it's breaking in. And the voice you've been trying to silence, it's screaming. 1 minute, 60 seconds, that's it. That's all you've got. And suddenly that endless highway you called life turns into a tightrope over fire. Funny, isn't it? How time feels infinite when you're wasting it, but feels like a loaded gun when it's running out. You blink, and everything that used to matter starts shrinking. The noise fades. The people vanish. The excuses, those beautiful, convenient little lies, they evaporate. Because now the countdown has teeth. It's breathing down your neck. And it doesn't care how tired you are, how confused, how unprepared. See, the illusion was always comfort. The lie was always time. You thought you had more of it. You thought you'd open the door tomorrow. You thought you'd chase the calling later. But now the whole damn room is on fire, and you've got one shot to move before everything collapses. That's what makes the minute real. Not the number, not the ticking, but the clarity it brings when you realize the waiting is over. You've been asleep with your eyes open, smiling in pictures, laughing at the right jokes, playing the part like a pro. But deep down, you knew this moment was coming. You felt it in the silence, in the gut ache that never left, in the way your chest got tighter every time you ignored the whisper. Not yet, you told yourself. I'm not ready. But ready doesn't matter when the clock hits 0. It never did. What matters is who you become when you don't have the luxury of time. Because now it's not about perfection, it's not about plans or approval or applause. It's about instinct, about truth, about answering the damn call that's been ringing so loud it's cracking the walls. You've looked for signs, you've begged for answers, but the answer isn't pretty, it isn't gentle. It's a kick to the ribs in the middle of your comfort zone. It's the kind of command that tears the mask off your face and dares you to show up anyway. People think transformation is slow, that it takes years, that you'll feel it coming like a train in the distance. But real change, it's messy, it's sudden, it's violent. It shows up uninvited and flips the table. It doesn't ask you if you're okay with it. It doesn't hand you a checklist or a map. It just says move. Now, before everything you've buried starts crawling out on its own. And that's the moment that separates the dreamers from the awakened. The ones who wait for green lights and the ones who drive through red because they know the road was never theirs to begin with. 1 minute isn't a warning. It's a test of will, of faith, of courage. Not the loud kind. Not the one that roars in crowds. The kind that whispers, I'll do it anyway, while the world tells you to sit down. So here you are, one hand on the door, one breath in your lungs, one decision left, no fanfare, no guarantees, just you. And that final tick echoing through your ribs like a war drum, because 1 minute is enough to burn the script, to choose chaos over comfort, to stop pretending and start becoming. And that minute is now. You see, delay wears a nice suit. It talks smooth, offers you coffee, tells you to breathe, take your time, wait for the stars to align. It doesn't shout, it whispers. Tomorrow, it says. Later, it says. There's no rush. But underneath that calm, behind that voice, is the grinning face of a thief. Not the kind that kicks down your door in the middle of the night. No. This one smiles while it picks your pocket in broad daylight, while you nod along like everything's fine. That's the deadliest trick, making you think you're in control while time slips right through your fingers. You convince yourself it's wisdom, strategy. You're not stalling, you're preparing, you're not scared, you're waiting for the right moment. You dress up your fear in logic. You wrap your hesitation in caution tape and call it maturity. But deep down, you know the moment already came, and it didn't knock. It kicked. It screamed. It begged you to act. But you blinked. You hesitated. You sat down when you should have stood up. And now? Now you're scrambling for a clock that doesn't tick backwards. Delay doesn't show you blood. It shows you comfort. It hands you pillows while your house burns down. It plays soft music while your purpose screams in the basement. That's the danger. You don't notice what you're losing because it doesn't feel like losing. It feels like rest. But it's not rest. It's rot. Slow. Quiet. Surgical. And by the time you wake up, your fire's cold and your name's been forgotten by the very calling you were born for. They'll tell you it's smart to wait, that you should think it through. But thinking without moving is just a prettier way to drown. You've been overthinking so long, you've built a prison out of your own doubts, brick by brick. Every what if another wall, every not yet another chain. And the worst part, you've convinced yourself that prison is a palace, that being stuck is safe, that not moving is somehow protecting you. But protection without motion is just a slow death in disguise. They always say time heals, but what they don't say is that time also steals. It steals the moments you don't claim, the doors you don't open, the voices you don't follow. It doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care if you're tired. Time is ruthless. It moves with or without your permission. And if you don't move with it, you get left behind pretending stillness is some kind of peace when really it's just your potential decaying in silence. You think obedience is about being ready. But real obedience, the kind that changes lives, it's about responding when it doesn't make sense, when it doesn't feel good. When the order comes wrapped in chaos and you've got nothing in your hands but fear. That's the test. That's the invitation. That's the trap. Delay tells you you're in control. But the emergency doesn't care. The emergency is here. And every second you stall, something irreplaceable is slipping through the cracks in your hands. The emergency is never out there. It's not the sirens, the smoke, or the people running in the streets like broken wind-up toys. That's just the noise. That's just the distraction. The real emergency, the one that matters, it's the one inside your rib cage. It's the alarm that's been going off quietly for years while you've kept turning up the volume on everything else just to drown it out. But no matter how loud the world gets, that siren inside you doesn't stop. It doesn't fade. It waits. Patiently. Unforgivingly. Because it knows that one day you'll run out of excuses. You've built a life avoiding that signal. Everything you've done, every little detour, every later and not yet, and maybe when I'm ready, all of it was just a dance around the fire you didn't want to face. And here's the twist. It's not the world that's burning. It's you. You're the spark. You're the chaos. You're the storm pounding against the inside of your own skin. But you've been told to behave, to smile, to keep it together while the truth eats you alive from the inside out. That's the trick with emergencies. People think they come suddenly, that they burst through the door uninvited and unexpected. But most emergencies don't arrive. They accumulate, quietly, slowly, like pressure behind your eyes, like weight on your chest, like a heartbeat that skips just enough to feel wrong. You walk around pretending everything's fine, while inside something is screaming for you to do something. But you don't, because you've been trained to ignore the fire until the smoke chokes you. You've medicated your emergency with distractions, with routines, with followers and filters and schedules. You've turned your own calling into background noise. You tell yourself you're not good enough, not strong enough, not ready, and then you believe it. You believe your own chains. And when the emergency flares up again, when the heat rises in your bones, you do what you've always done. You suppress it. You silence it. You put on a face and call it normal. But here's what they don't teach you. That fire inside you, that's not weakness. That's not madness. That's not a flaw. That's the signal. That's the damn flare shot straight from your purpose. And every time you ignore it, every time you numb it, every time you delay it, you let a little more of yourself die in the name of comfort. You trade truth for quiet, destiny for stillness, and peace. You don't get peace. You get the illusion of safety while your soul sets itself on fire behind your eyes. Everyone wants to fix the world, save the day, be the hero. But they skip the first step, rescue yourself. You want to respond to the outside while your insides are collapsing. You want to pretend you're okay while dragging around the weight of everything you've never faced. That's not courage. That's camouflage. The emergency is in your heartbeat, your breath, your hesitation. Every pause that shouldn't be there. Every moment you felt the pull but stayed still. That's the real siren. That's the voice that doesn't care how polished your surface looks. And when it finally gets too loud to ignore, when it bursts through your veins like a riot, you'll either listen or you'll break. That's the deal. That's the deadline. The outside world will keep spinning, keep distracting, keep lying, but inside is the truth, raw and feral, and it's demanding your attention. Because if you don't treat your inner fire like an emergency, it'll become one. And when that happens, no mask, no noise, no delay will be enough to save you from the thing that's been trying to wake you up all along. Funny thing about truth, it's not polite. Doesn't knock on the door, doesn't say excuse me or wait for a convenient moment. No. Truth kicks in the door with muddy boots and a crooked grin, ruins the carpet and sits in your favorite chair like it owns the place. And you, what do? You panic, you scramble, you reach for the nearest lie, like it's a blanket that can save you from the storm. But it never does, because truth doesn't go away just because you're not ready, especially when time's up. When the seconds start dying, that's when it shows up. The mask starts to slip. The mirror fogs and clears again. And for a second, you see yourself. Not the version you show to people. Not the one with answers. The real one. The one with cracked edges and burning questions. The one who remembers. Who remembers what you were supposed to be before the noise, the rules, the expectations turned you into something quieter, something safer, something easier to digest. Tick, tick. It's not just a sound, it's a countdown. And when the clock starts screaming, the truth doesn't ask if you're comfortable. It demands. It claws its way to the surface, rips through the costume you've stitched together out of fear and routine. And what's left underneath? Not the calm, not the collected, just raw nerves and burning instinct. The kind of instinct that knows exactly what it needs to do, but you've buried it under years of pretending not to hear it. You call it overreacting. You call it paranoia. But maybe that rising panic is just your soul realizing the lies are too heavy now, too sharp, too damn loud. Maybe the unease isn't weakness, it's warning. A red light flashing behind your smile. And while you keep smiling, the real you is clawing at the inside of your chest, trying to break out before the last grain of time drops and the door locks forever. Ever wonder why your hands shake when you ignore it? Why your breath gets short when you lie to yourself? That's not anxiety. That's not pressure. That's your body trying to scream over the silence you've created. You've wrapped your life in comfort, but the truth, your truth, is not comfortable. It's wild. It's electric. It's the emergency broadcast you keep muting because it's never convenient to be real when everyone else is busy being fake. But there's a catch, a nasty little twist. When time dies, truth lives. And it lives loud. The moment that second hand hits its mark and there's no more room to delay, the truth explodes. It doesn't ask for forgiveness. It doesn't say, told you so. It just is. And by then it's too late to rewrite the story. Too late to pretend you didn't know. Because deep down you always did. You felt it. The burning behind your ribs. The silence between your thoughts. The way the world twisted just slightly when you said yes instead of no. That was it. That was the truth. Begging you. Daring you. And now, it's here. No masks. No warnings. Just the raw, final scream of what's always been waiting underneath the lies you called life. Rest. The world spits that word out like it's poison unless you're broken, unless you're bleeding, unless you've collapsed in a public place and they can post it, tag it, turn it into something digestible. Until then, you rest and you're lazy. You pause and you're falling behind. You breathe too long and suddenly you're the problem, the weak one, the coward who couldn't keep up with the circus. But let me ask you something. Who built this race? Who said never stopping was noble? Who convinced you that the only way to matter is to burn? You weren't born to be a machine. You weren't designed for assembly lines of expectations, blinking lights, deadlines stitched to your skin like barcodes. But they fed you that lie early, taught you to keep smiling while your soul cracked, taught you to celebrate exhaustion, rewarded you for being the last one to sleep, the first one to sacrifice, the one who never says no, never says I need a minute, because God forbid you actually feel anything other than pressure. You don't even realize it anymore, do you? The way your breath shortens when you sit still too long. The guilt that creeps in when you try to slow down. That's not you being lazy. That's you being conditioned, trained, programmed like some glorified puppet with a productivity quota. And what's the reward? A grave with a gold plaque. A burned out legacy made of ashes and applause from people who never really knew you. But here's the thing. Rest, real rest, is dangerous. It's defiant. It's rebellion in a world addicted to noise and movement. Because when you rest, really rest, the mask falls off. The echo chamber dies, and suddenly you can hear again. Not them, not the voices demanding more. You, your voice. That tiny little spark in the back of your mind that still remembers who you were before you traded truth for performance. And that voice, oh, it doesn't whisper. It screams once you give it silence. It screams about all the dreams you shelved for deadlines. About the love you buried under logistics. About the version of you that once danced in the fire instead of carrying buckets for others. Rest brings that version back. And they're not polite. They're not interested in fitting in. They're wild, honest, and they remember everything. So they'll call it lazy, call it weak, try to guilt you back into the grind, back into the noise. Because if you stop moving, you might start asking questions, dangerous ones, like why am I doing this, or who am I really doing this for? And when those questions hit, the whole illusion starts to crack. The whole stage show loses its magic. And you realize the only thing holding it together was your willingness to keep dancing even when the music stopped. Rest isn't about sleep. It's about space. Space to feel again. Space to remember that you're not a cog in someone else's machine. Space to let the rage boil instead of bottling it. Space to let the joy come back without being scheduled. And once that space opens, once you taste what freedom really feels like, even for a second, they can't sell you the cage anymore, no matter how shiny it looks or how many claps it gets. You walk around like your fire is public property, like your light belongs to the world on demand. Smile when they ask, shine when they need, perform, perform. But who told you that? Who convinced you that being chosen meant being available, that your soul was some vending machine where anyone could press a button and take what they wanted? They don't want the real you. They want the part of you that makes them feel better. The glow, not the flame. The warmth, not the burn. They want the highlight reel, trimmed down, polished up, wrapped in a bow that doesn't make them uncomfortable. But the fire inside you, that's not a gift for the crowd. That's a survival mechanism. It's sacred. It's dangerous. And not everyone deserves access to it. You weren't made to be open 24/7. You weren't built to be consumed, digested, picked apart like a show on repeat. But the world, it thrives on access. The more broken you are, the more they feast. The more tired you are, the more they applaud. They'll call it commitment. They'll label it grit. But it's a trap, a beautifully disguised cage. Because the moment you say no, the moment you close the door, suddenly you're the problem. Suddenly you're selfish. Suddenly you're not the same anymore. Funny, isn't it? When you're burning yourself alive to keep them warm. They call you inspiring. But when you pull back, when you save that fire for yourself, they call you distant, cold, strange. But here's the truth they don't want whispered out loud. You don't owe anyone your flame. Not your friends, not your family, not your followers. That fire was never theirs to begin with. It's yours. And sometimes keeping it to yourself isn't cruel, it's necessary. There's a difference between giving and being robbed, between purpose and performance, and you. You've spent too long confusing the two. You thought saying yes meant you were strong, that being everything to everyone made you chosen. But being chosen doesn't mean being sacrificed. It means you were given something rare, something real, and rare things. They don't sit on open shelves. They stay hidden, guarded, protected. People will call your silence arrogance. They'll call your distance dramatic. Let them talk. Because those same people, they were never looking out for you. They were looking for the version of you that served them. And the second you stop serving, the mask comes off. The truth leaks out. You see who was clapping because they loved you, and who was clapping because they loved the benefit of you. And when they knock, let them knock. When they question, let them wonder. You're not cold. You're not cruel. You're just done leaking pieces of yourself for people who never bled for you. Your fire is not free. Your energy is not currency. And the truth is, the more you protect it, the more dangerous you become. Not because you're hiding, but because you're finally whole, and a whole soul that knows its worth. That's the kind of light that doesn't flicker for anyone on command. Ah, now isn't that something? Move back. That's what he said. Not charge forward, not take the throne, not burn it all down, just move back. And everyone hears that and thinks it's weakness, right? Cowardice. Retreat. As if stepping back means surrendering. As if distance isn't a weapon sharper than any blade. But see, that's the trick. They never taught you how dangerous silence can be. They never warned you that pulling away doesn't mean giving up. It means seeing clearer. Stepping back. Ah, the move nobody respects. The one that gets you labeled a coward, a quitter, a shadow of what you used to be. But the truth is stepping back is an art, a deadly art. It's like disappearing in plain sight while the rest of the fools swing at ghosts. Because when you step back, you're not escaping, you're observing, you're calculating, you're not out of the game, you're rewiring the entire board from the sidelines. They don't understand it, do they? The ones who are addicted to motion, always pushing forward like a train with no brakes. Faster, harder, louder. But you stepped back, and the world started whispering, started doubting, started mocking. They said, look, he's scared, he's done, he's lost it. But they didn't know the fire you pulled inside. They didn't feel the silence turning into strategy. That moment when you stop playing by their rules and start making your own. See, when everyone's rushing forward, thinking the prize is just one more punch away, stepping back makes you unpredictable. And that terrifies them. You want to scare a room full of egos? Don't shout. Don't fight. Just smile, nod, and walk back into the dark. Let them wonder what you see that they don't. Let them panic over what you're planning. Because that little pause, that step back, it breaks their rhythm. They're not afraid of your fists. They're afraid of your silence. Now let me tell you a little secret about power. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need applause. Real power waits. It listens. It watches the dominoes fall, not because it can't stop them, but because it wants to see who trips first. Real power doesn't rush to prove itself. It already knows. And when the world is too busy screaming to notice, that's when the shift happens. That's when the tables turn, quietly, cruelly, and without warning. They want to pull you back into the noise. They want you reactive, angry, predictable. But you're not here to perform. You're here to dismantle, one illusion at a time. And the first illusion you shattered. That power is always loud. That strength always swings. That dominance always charges. No. True power smiles while the rest burn themselves out trying to understand what changed. And you, by stepping back, you became the change they can't control. They never saw the pullback coming because they thought you needed to be seen. But you've been watching from a place they can't touch. While they were chasing validation, you were sharpening awareness. While they were throwing punches in the light, you were dissolving into the dark. You turned your back not to flee, but to listen better, to feel more, to calculate the moment when one step forward would be too predictable, and one step back would become the move that ended the game before they even realized it started. The loudest moves, they're delicious. Flashy, noisy, begging for attention like a child with a sparkler. But look closer. The louder it is, the dumber it becomes. Real traps, they're set in silence. Real damage, it's done when nobody's watching. Because the moment something screams for your eyes, that's when your throat's already been slit. The parade, that's for the fools. The ones who dance on command, clap on cue, and die never realizing who cut their strings. Loud moves are vanity. Quiet ones are venom. While everyone's running toward the explosion, someone calm, someone deliberate just flicked a match behind them. No applause, no spotlight, just a flick and a grin. Now everything's burning and they're still wondering who started the fire. That's power. Power isn't noise. Power is the ability to make everyone think they're in control until the floor collapses beneath them. You ever seen a snake hiss when it strikes? No, it doesn't scream. It doesn't stomp. It calculates, it waits, and then snap, too late. That's how real moves are made. Not with marching bands and neon signs, with stillness, with timing. But people love the noise. They measure strength by volume. They think the louder someone is, the more they matter. But noise is just fear wearing heels. Loud is scared trying to look confident. Real confidence doesn't need to say a word. Because here's the twist. When you move quietly, the world doesn't know what to react to. You become fog, a whisper, a ghost in their plans. They can't target what they can't hear. And that makes them nervous. Really nervous. The kind of nervous that makes their hands shake and their lies crumble. The kind of nervous that exposes everything they try to hide behind that oh-so-fake smile. All it takes is one quiet move, one surgical shift, and suddenly they're choking on their own certainty. It's funny how they call silence weakness. Like peace isn't the calm before the storm. Like retreat isn't the setup for the final strike. That's the beauty of quiet moves. They don't just catch people off guard, they show you who's real and who's just performing. The ones who panic when you go quiet. They were never ready for theater. They only knew how to fight what they could hear. But you became silence. You became the move they didn't train for. So go ahead, let them swing. Let them shout. Let them exhaust themselves chasing ghosts in the fog. While they do that, you're behind the curtain cutting wires. You're in the silence, bending the rules. No flash, no cheer, just results. You move like a riddle, like a virus. You infect the system quietly, methodically, until one day they wake up and everything they believed in is upside down and they don't even know who to blame. Because they never heard you coming. They were too busy watching the noise. And that's why the loudest moves are traps, because they're made for show. But the quiet ones are made for impact. Tick, tock. But no one's watching the clock. They're all dancing, all smiling, all pretending like the show will never end. But time, it never stops. It doesn't shout, doesn't stomp, it just moves. Slowly, invisibly. It's the quiet executioner. See, people confuse movement with progress. Just because they're spinning doesn't mean they're going anywhere. Just because it's loud doesn't mean it matters. But timing is the god behind the curtain. And most are too distracted to see his hand. Everyone wants to be first. First to speak, first to act, first to fire. But no one asks if it's the right moment. No one wonders if it's the right battlefield. They rush in, teeth bared, hearts pounding, and they wonder why they bleed before the fight even starts. Because power isn't about being fast. It's about knowing when to be fast. It's about holding back when everyone else is losing their minds. It's about standing still in a world that can't sit still. People hate stillness. It terrifies them. Because in stillness, there's nowhere to hide. No noise to cover the thoughts screaming in their heads. So they drown themselves in distractions, but not you. No, you've seen the value of the pause, the danger in the delay, the tension in the silence before the strike. While they move out of fear, you move out of design. While they react, you choose. You control the tempo, you slow the music down until it's your rhythm they follow. And the funniest part? They think timing is luck, that it just happens. They don't see the patience behind it. The madness it takes to sit still when everything is screaming, go. The strength it takes to hold fire when every bone in your body wants war. But you know, you felt it. That boiling calm, that ticking grin. You've looked the moment in the eye and whispered, not yet. And when you finally move, when you move, it's too late for them to stop you. You've seen how the world worships action. They hand out trophies to the loud ones, the fast ones, the ones who jump before looking, but you know better. You don't want the trophy. You want the leverage, the shift, the turning point. Because you understand that it only takes one move at the right time to undo 1,000 made in the wrong. You wait for the moment they forget you were even playing. That's when you flip the board. That's when you don't just win, you end the game entirely. So let them mock your silence. Let them laugh at your pause. Let them call you slow, lazy, weak. Because they don't see it yet. They don't see it, the storm building behind your stillness. They don't hear the countdown buried beneath your calm. They think you've fallen behind, but you're not behind. You're below, watching, listening, smiling. Because when the moment comes, your moment, everything shifts, everything cracks, and all the noise in the world won't drown out what happens next. They say get close to the fire if you want to feel the truth, right? But what if I told you the fire was never out there to begin with? What if it's been burning inside your ribs behind that smile, under those heavy bones you drag through another day pretending you're not already on the edge? See, everyone's scanning the outside world looking for signs, warnings, answers. But the emergency, it's not coming from the sirens. It's not in the headlines. It's already crawling around inside your soul, whispering through your spine like smoke before the blaze. People keep asking, what's wrong with the world? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's that everyone's asleep with their eyes wide open, dreaming with a mouth full of slogans, dead inside but still going to meetings. They've mistaken numbness for peace. They've confused distraction for safety. And in the middle of it all, there's you, feeling like something's about to burst. Not sure what it is, not sure when, but it's there, pressing, scratching, waiting for you to listen. You ever sit in a room full of laughter and feel like screaming? Ever hear someone say, I'm fine, and you know they're not even close? That's the emergency I'm talking about. The silent one, the invisible one, the kind that doesn't announce itself with flashing lights, but creeps in like a virus, slow, polite, deadly. The world doesn't want you to notice it. Because if you notice, you might start questioning. If you question, you might start moving differently. If you move differently, well, then you become dangerous. There's a reason the masks are glued on so tight. There's a reason honesty is treated like a threat. You walk into a room and tell the truth. People don't thank you, they panic. Because deep down, they know they've been building castles out of denial and one gust of reality. Down it all comes, so they avoid it, distract, entertain, celebrate nonsense. But inside they're rotting. And the ones who see it, they feel insane. But you're not insane. You're awake. You're the emergency alarm they're trying to silence. You ever wonder why the ones who break the rules get called crazy? Not the violent ones, not the loud ones, the honest ones, the ones who say, hey, maybe this isn't okay. That's who scares them. Because they don't want things to change. They want to pretend they've already changed. And you ruin the fantasy. You with your cracked smile and your inconvenient questions and that fire in your chest you keep trying to smother with maybe tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't come. Not in this system. It's always just out of reach, just enough to keep you waiting, never enough to set you free. So what do? They sell you comfort. Packages of it. Smiles, likes, trends, and pills. Anything to numb that signal inside you screaming, this is not how it's supposed to be. But that signal, it doesn't shut up, no matter how many distractions they throw your way. Because it's not noise. It's a call, a quiet, desperate call from the part of you that remembers. Remembers what life felt like before you were told to settle down and shut up. Remembers when your blood ran hot and your dreams made your hands shake. Remembers that you weren't made to survive this system. You were made to break it. They call it strength. This game of standing tall, pushing forward, marching with your chin up like you're not breaking inside. But I've seen the strong. They scream into pillows. They laugh too loud. They pretend so hard it bleeds. You think power's about showing up? No. Real power is knowing when to disappear, when to slip out of the spotlight, out of the parade, out of the circus where they clap for clowns and crucify the truth. There's something poetic about vanishing without warning. They look for you in the places they forced you into, but you're no longer there. Poof. Gone. Dangerous. You know what frightens them. It's not rebellion. It's silence. That kind of silence that buzzes, that makes them nervous. Because when the loud ones fall quiet, the system doesn't know where to aim. It panics. See, when you're loud, you're predictable. But when you retreat, strategically, not cowardly, they start to wonder what you've seen, what you've figured out, why you're smiling like you've already won and the game hasn't even started. They told you never give up, didn't they? But here's the thing. Sometimes giving up on them is the only way to win. Giving up on the race you never signed up for. Giving up on performing like a wind-up doll for people who only applaud when you bleed on cue. They call that quitting. I call that awakening. You vanish not to escape, but to evolve, to upgrade. You don't leave the game. You change the rules and build your own board while they're still playing checkers in a burning room. There's an art to walking away, to ghosting the noise, to saying, "Not today," while smiling like you've got a secret. And you do. You know that the strongest people aren't the ones screaming at the front lines. They're the ones who study in the shadows, sharpening knives with their silence. You think you're being weak by stepping back? Oh no, you're loading, you're reprogramming, you're letting the fools tire themselves out dancing for attention while you become the storm they never saw coming. They measure success by applause. You measure it by peace. They chase gold. You carry fire. They think vanishing is failure. But you know better. You don't need to prove anything to anyone choking on mediocrity. You disappear so you can breathe. So you can remember who you were before the world started editing you. So you can stare in the mirror without wearing a mask so tight it feels like skin. You vanish, and in that quiet, you rebuild. And while they search for the version of you they used to manipulate, you're out there somewhere, untamed, unreadable, unstoppable. They can't figure out what happened. One day you were there, smiling, nodding, complying. And now there's just a space filled with questions, and silence, and fear. Because the loud ones are easy to fight. But the ones who walk away without a sound, they're the ones who've already won. You ever notice how they all follow the noise? Flashy lights, sirens, trends, shiny promises, empty dreams with golden wrapping. They bite every time. And the second they see someone walking in the opposite direction, they laugh. Oh, how they laugh. Because stepping away from the crowd looks like madness when you're surrounded by sheep. But madness, my dear friend, is just clarity too sharp for the blind. You've felt it, haven't you? That sudden jolt, that eerie nudge, that whisper behind your eyes that says, "Get out now," not fear. Instinct, that ancient signal coded into your bones, the one they tried to silence with routines and rewards. But you heard it. You heard him. And when you did, the world around you didn't make sense anymore. It never did. It was just dressed well enough to fool your better judgment. Until now. Now you're aware. And awareness. Oh, that's dangerous. It doesn't come with balloons and celebrations. It comes with isolation. With paranoia. With the slow, creeping realization that most people aren't even awake. They're functioning corpses reacting to programming they didn't write, defending a system that feeds on their silence. And when someone wakes up in the middle of that nightmare, what do? They scream. Or worse, they go back to sleep. But not you. You didn't go back. You moved back. That's what they don't get. You didn't retreat. You repositioned. You followed the signal when it screamed in silence. Because some orders aren't barked. They echo. Quiet. Precise. Divine. Move back now. Not because you're losing, but because you're stepping out of the trap. You left the maze before it collapsed. You heard the ticking and didn't wait to see where the bomb was hidden. And they'll call it fear, cowardice, weakness. Let them. Their judgment is cheap. Their applause means nothing when the theater is burning. And now you're invisible to them. And that terrifies them, because they can't use what they can't see. They can't profit from someone who doesn't dance. You're not in their game anymore, and that makes you a threat. They try to bait you, guilt you, lure you back with glitter. But the moment you moved, the second you listened, it was done. You didn't escape. You transcended. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped performing. You obeyed the voice, not the volume. You obeyed the echo, not the echo chamber. And in that single step backward, you became the only one in the room who actually moved forward.